Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to this conversation. There's a lot to potentially go over, but I really want to just level set and get everyone on the same page about what it is that the company does, what Polygon's involved with. At some point in time, we'd love to hear about the number of different things you've branched off into, right? So there's a ton of things that are happening for the organization right now. So I guess first and foremost, can you level set and help people understand what it is that you all are involved with?
Yes. So, Polygon started with the one North Star, and that North Star is how do we bring mass adoption for Web3. And, the moment you have that vision in mind, the mandate is pretty clear that right now the blockchains are not, scalable enough, and you need to scale blockchains, right? Then, that leads us to a point where, you realize that due to the theoretical things like scalability trilemma and things like that, it is virtually impossible to scale at layer 1.
Right.
So, then we reached the point where, we should scale at layer 2. And you scale at layer 2, but for that you need a very strong decentralized layer 1. That in our mind is Ethereum. Ethereum is that settlement layer which has, reached a particular point with multiple perfect storms that it had, like the whole ICO boom, after that like the NFT boom, DeFi boom and all that. The network effects and the decentralization of Ethereum are at a particular point where it seems like it has already won this global settlement layer L1, right? And so we are focused on scaling Ethereum at layer 2. Layer 2 essentially means that, instead of doing all the transactions and computations on Ethereum blockchain itself, you do the computation somewhere else, but then you connect back into Ethereum and, depending upon how much security you need from Ethereum, you publish your proofs and, whatever it is, like basically proof of computations on Ethereum. So, our vision of Ethereum scaling, our notion of Ethereum scaling is much wider, because many in the Ethereum community might say that okay, layer 2 is only this, like where everything is secured by Ethereum and all that. We feel that scaling Ethereum means scaling the network effects of Ethereum. So many side chains also scale Ethereum, many rollups will also scale Ethereum, many Validium kind of solutions will also scale Ethereum. So it's a spectrum. And this brings me to the point that what all Polygon does, right? So we believe that in terms of layer 2 computations, right, there is a spectrum that how much security you want from Ethereum. And if we start from the left extreme where you don't get any security from Ethereum, and on this right extreme of this spectrum you have the full security from Ethereum. So Polygon is present across the spectrum. On the left extreme you have complete sovereign side chains, which can be completely app specific chains, and they connect back into Ethereum, but they don't derive any security from Ethereum, right? So they are pure side chains. Then in the middle you have Polygon POS like chains, which is currently the most adopted blockchain globally. 10,000 plus applications, and large amount of TVL by number of users, and a lot of metrics. It is generally considered to be the most adopted blockchain, even by the number of users, even bigger than the Ethereum main chain right now, right? So that's in the middle. It derives some security from Ethereum, commits back all the proofs of everything that we are doing on Ethereum, but does not derive like full security from Ethereum. And on the right extreme, we are working on various different solutions, especially on the rollup side, where we are more biased towards ZK rollups instead of optimistic rollups. So we have multiple efforts, because even in ZK rollups right now, it's not very clear. So instead of being very opinionated that okay, this will work, we have 2-3 efforts. Where one is a transpilation effort, one is a direct, you take Solidity bytecode and run it and all that. But basically you have like 3-4 initiatives over there in the ZK rollup side, and a data availability initiative, which is for Validium. So basically Polygon is present across the spectrum to provide various different kinds of scaling solutions. In a simple sentence, it's a scaling suite for Ethereum. Kind of we want to become the AWS for Web3, where if you are a developer, you want to launch your application. Today you go on Amazon Web Services and launch your servers. Here, we hope that we'll reach that place where as a developer you will come on Polygon, you'll choose, okay, this solution suits me the most. You start with that.
Really appreciate you going through that. So what does the impact of the merge, so ETH2 eventually coming in different parts, right, coming down the line, have on Polygon? Because the hope, I guess, from Vitalik Buterin is that he wants to get it to the point where they can also scale, right? So they can have the security and they can also scale. Does that have any impact on?
So, this Ethereum scaling is actually in two different, steps. So the current step that we are seeing this year, merge, that does not add to any scalability per se on Ethereum. The Ethereum chain will still remain the same 13 to 15 TPS. It's just that the chain, instead of POW, proof of work, it will basically proof of stake, right? But then in 3 to 5 years, the plan is, and that is one of the plans that's not even set yet, but probably Ethereum will go into a sharded mode where you will have 64 such shards. So in terms of the impact, like the merge doesn't have any impact on Polygon. In fact, it's, if it becomes more greener, people like, so many, like Instagram, is launching NFTs, and, so many big players like gaming studios and all that. And everybody is concerned about the green part of blockchains. And I think when Ethereum, merges into the POS, I think overall the green footprint of all the layer 2 solutions increases. So it's, for us also, it's very, very good. We'll be more greener in that sense. But even when the Ethereum goes into the sharded mode in 3 to 5 years, when it has like 64 plus shards and all that, then basically the cost of settling back on Ethereum reduces a lot. I mean, people like, this is a general question, that what happens to all the layers 2 scaling solutions when the ETH 2.0 comes. But if you see it from that perspective, we are with Ethereum, we are trying to design, or Ethereum basically community is trying to design, and we are also part, is to design the global computer where all the world's applications can live. Right, so current Ethereum chain is 13 TPS roughly, right? 13 transactions per second, and 64 shards will take you to 1,000 transactions per second, probably, right? Is it enough for the whole world's Web3 to exist in that? I don't think so. It will still be like 1,000 transactions per second is barely enough for being the global settlement layer. So that's why we are very clear, and the research and the current state of market completely supports that, is that Ethereum is essentially the settlement layer. So Ethereum 2.2 efforts are basically to scale this settlement layer, but the users and the end user transactions and applications will live on layer 2s and layer 3s and whatnot.
So where is your thought process on multi-chain? So other chains, Solana, Avalanche, other layer 1s. I mean, do you consider at some point connecting some of those?
Not really, because on the layer 1, our thesis is that layer 1 is a last man standing game. And there are, my personal thesis is that layer 1 needs extreme decentralization, right? So it's a decentralization game. You cannot go away with decentralization. So a lot of solutions that we are talking about who are trying to scale at layer 1 itself, they either sacrifice on decentralization, or like it's or they have to sacrifice on the scale itself. Like for example, Solana sacrificed big time. So decentralization. Similarly, Avalanche, if you see, they have fair amount of decentralization, but at the end their C chain is still like it can hardly, it is not even equivalent to Ethereum. It already, the gas fees started going up when they started having 1 million transactions and all that, and at the end they are also scaling with these subnets, which is basically nothing but side chains, right? So it also proves the scale decentralization trilemma, that you cannot basically scale at the layer 1. So in terms of like existing other layer 1s, we like definitely right now don't believe that there is any contender to even challenge Ethereum. Solana did a very good social layer marketing and all that, but I think like fundamentally there are a lot of flaws which makes us believe that it's nowhere near to even challenge Ethereum on that, and no other layer 1 is. Even like I have another level this thing that not only about any other alt layer 1s they can compete with Ethereum. In fact, Ethereum versus Bitcoin, I feel somewhere that Ethereum has the capability, or Ethereum essentially has the utility as well as the the monetary kind of premium to it that it can even surpass Bitcoin in that sense, because it has everything. The supply is now deflationary.
Right.
That's the only thing that Bitcoin side has. It has the token has an actual use, because you can use this global computer, and this with proof of stake it will become a yield bearing asset, where if you own Ethereum and you stake it in the network, you get the transaction fees in terms of the yield, right? So I believe that this kind of becomes the perfect asset, and not only other layer ones, but even with BTC, Ethereum stacks right now better for us, unless Bitcoin figures out maybe payments part very strongly with Lightning Network, or some smart contract platform comes in.
They'll say that they do. They'll say that they have the whole Lightning Network settled, but I haven't seen it as of yet personally.
Same here.
I want to head down to El Salvador to check that out to see how things are going for them, but it doesn't sound like it's going as well as they hope.
But of course, Bitcoin is the OG. It started the whole this thing. So all respect for Ethereum. But right now, as a technical person, doesn't feel that great to me.
No, I totally agree with you. So before we get to the different product sets that you have right now, like the enterprise version, all these other that you have going, I'd love to hear your, taking a step back, what's going on in the global landscape in terms of, and there's a lot of news these days about people sort of really scoffing at cryptocurrencies in general, sometimes as they relate to, of course, blockchains. So when you go from country to country, or from Europe to Asia to the United States, North America, South America, you're seeing the tugging and the pulling of philosophies about maybe this is really not a good thing. Do you watch what's going on across the legislation, where that's all going across the globe?
I mean, I come from India, and I keep a very strong eye on legislation. I think one of the bad things about the current narrative around cryptocurrencies, because it started with Ethereum or with Bitcoin, I think we have this currency tagged along with this. Like, we need to change that narrative into Web3, this decentralized, ownable, user-owned, community-owned internet, right? Which, because of the narrative wildly around cryptocurrencies and its trading aspect, it kind of takes a hit. I completely agree with you. In India also, I think everybody is pro blockchain, pro Web3. But when it comes around like those, because the capital markets and all that, and capital flight and AML and all those kind of things, it makes a lot of governments nervous, and rightfully so. So I think we need to do a lot of things. I think this metaverse meme helped crypto a lot. Like the NFTs did a great work for crypto, I think. So like now the kind of large scale or masses are basically involved in crypto, because it's much easier for them to understand. So I definitely feel that cryptocurrencies have a misnomer to them, but I think slowly governments are getting there about Web3, and we as a whole community should put more focus on building this narrative of Web3. This community owned internet is much larger phenomena than currency. Currency is actually, it's like, it's basically, if they had internet on day zero, had only like, games and porn websites and betting, like if, government started thinking about internet in just those three things, internet would have never grown, right? So it's the same thing.
Totally makes sense, and I appreciate that. So sort of a random question, but it just popped into my head. So Roblox, right? It's been around since 2006, and they have their own currency. And you do not have to say this, so I'm just kind of curious. Have you ever engaged with them to find out whether or not they'd be open to sort of a more open platform in this space, so that they could eventually port over NFTs? Because it's literally a walled garden at this point in time. Is that something that you think would make sense for? Because they're essentially, what they've created is a metaverse in and of themselves, right? It's a platform, and that's what they're doing.
Exactly. So we, like, not particularly with Roblox, but we have spoken, and we are engaged with multiple big gaming studios and things like that. And the discussion there is very simple, right? That if we go by first principles, let's go by first principles. Imagine if today I had a Roblox with the same user experience, everything same. We had two Roblox. One was this centralized walled garden. One was an open NFT and all that, where you can take NFTs, move out and all that. Now ask this question, that which one users will choose. You will immediately realize that the second one users will choose. So it's all about the noise right now that you have. But if you see it long enough, then definitely this is going to be emerging as victorious. And that's why, like, I think the whole thing about Web3, it makes so much natural sense. If you know and understand this, you are like, this is the thing.
Yeah.
So all these gaming studios are realizing this fact. Like, when we are able to tell them on the first principle basis, they agree to this, that yes, sooner or later somebody is going to crack this user experience, the economics model and all that, and this is where the larger number of gamers are going to go.
So Bored Ape Yacht Club came out with their own metaverse not long ago. They did their land sale. They sold $450 million within about a 90-minute period. The gas fees were at the highest, and I watched them. I was sitting there watching it. Got up to $10,000 for one transaction.
Oh, wow.
So people paid $10,000 just for the transaction to get this piece of land, right? Afterwards, they were alarmed. They were upset. They're like, "Oh, we can't have. How do we do this? Like, why did we not think about what could have been out there?" And the natural is to why didn't they use it layer 2?
Yeah.
Did you ever hear from anybody, or has there been any discussions around,
sure.
for going forward, maybe they could leverage something like that?
For sure. There are so many things happening on that front, and I think the BAYC community recently voted that they want to stay in Ethereum. So I think even when they choose a scaling platform, it would be I think a Ethereum layer 2. And I think it makes total sense. Like with BAYC, I think it's the biggest crypto brand, I think, after Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think, right now, and most engaged community. And, they should use some layer 2. And in fact, the way they are growing, eventually they should be able to have their own BAYC layer 2, right? Which has all the BAYC metaverses, games, and whatnot, right? So they are one of those brands who can do it.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so one of the things I'm definitely curious about is hearing about the enterprise you have. I think Ernst & Young is involved in this. Can you go through some of those? You don't have to go through all of them, but I wouldn't mind hearing all about them. What the benefits are, what you're trying to accomplish with each one of those.
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, as I talked about the spectrum, right? So that spectrum, actually, if you see, is also applicable to the kind of clients that want to use. So if you are a very early stage startup and you cannot afford your own chain, then you will go for a Polygon POS chain, which has low cost transactions, fast and all that. If you are big enough, then you might want to go for your own chain, right? And that's what we are discussing with enterprises also. That in the scenario that like with Ernst & Young Nightfall, it's a privacy focused layer 2, because for enterprises, privacy is the most important thing. Similarly, you have a lot of Web 2, like we categorize them as Web 2 giants, right? Like, Instagram, as you know, and there are so many who are coming in, Stripe, also integrated with Polygon for USDC payments and things like that. Recently, you saw Salesforce, that is also built on Polygon Edge framework and whatnot. So, definitely we see. And I personally, coming from in my, a small Deloitte background, I see that enterprises are definitely interested. Previously, they almost got the private blockchains were kind of a sham. Now everybody realizes that's kind of a misnomer,
right?
Oxymoron, if you will. And then now they are interested in public blockchains, and slowly the layer 2 solutions that we are working with, let's say Ernst & Young and some of the other like Supernets and all that we are building, Supernet solution that we are building, it seems like we are reaching closer to the point where enterprises would be interested in adopting these things. And I feel that we might be still like 12 to 18 months, 24 months out from that, but the crypto's real super cycle starts when big enterprises start adopting it left, right, and center, right? So that's why it's a focus area for us. And right now nobody is working on that. Like from a mainstream crypto side, nobody is focusing on enterprise. And I think we are the only project in that sense who is focused on enterprise. And I want to build that more in the next 18 to 24 months before it actually starts becoming a thing.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So you've mentioned privacy a few times. So it's made me think about a few different things. If you look at regulators, you look at various countries, one of the things, the biggest concern is people using things like Tornado Cash.
Yes.
Is there something out there that would sit on the layer 2 that if people wanted to, and there are use cases, justifiable use cases for that. Maybe I'm in Iran or North Korea, if I had access to internet in North Korea. But if I had that and I wanted to get something, maybe it's a pamphlet for democracy, they want to promote inside of Iran or somewhere else, and they wanted to go to the dark web, get that, and they wanted to do the transaction, whatever the case is, they would do it in a safe fashion so that no one knew who it was and all that great stuff. Is there a solution in layer 2 with Polygon that would allow for people to do the same sort of thing?
I think the current the Polygon Nightfall solution that is there, it is actually somewhere in the middle. So we are building it for enterprises, so you can have KYC'd privacy, because governments are also careful about, like, if you are a privacy solution like Tornado Cash and all that, like, then a lot of illegitimate activity, illegal activity can also happen over there. So how we are thinking about it is that having a layer 2, if we want to have it specifically for enterprises, we can actually build it in a way where if a particular address is not KYC'd, it cannot interact, right? So that is one possibility where governments will be comfortable that, okay, even this is private, even if this is private, but we know that these are regulated entities, right? We can go to them and ask for these things. Whereas for this Tornado Cash, like the other kind of use case, it's very hard, because the moment you have something like that, it is very hard to discriminate or differentiate between good activity and bad activity. But I mean, as a whole, as humanity, like on a larger level, we do need privacy, and I really don't have a good answer to that. Like, how do we ensure that there is privacy for masses while still ensuring that the illegal activities can be detected somewhere?
And you may have spoken to this by saying the particular product, but the ZKP, so zero knowledge proofs, is that what you're talking about, the Nightfall?
Yes.
So
Nightfall
is
Nightfall is basically a optimistic rollup, but it uses, on the chain, it has zero knowledge proofs, which makes things private, like the transactions private.
I mean, I personally think that's got to be the direction that a lot of organizations go. If you have like healthcare information, or if you want to just give out certain pieces of information about yourself, but you don't want to reveal everything, if you want to expire it later, all that could be hopefully.
That is one of our solutions called Polygon ID. You might have heard about that. And Polygon ID is basically, we used to previously call it Polygon ZK ID, zero knowledge ID. Your ID has, everybody has zero knowledge about your ID, but it's your ID. And that actually works in a fashion like this, where if, let's say, somebody wants to know that, prove that you are more than 18 years of age, you can just provide a proof that I am more than 18 years, but you don't know exactly my age. I can be 70, I can be 30, I can be 19 also, right? And, prove that you have more than $1 million on your address, so that you can enter into this exclusive club, for example, right? Show that you are a citizen of US without you revealing your full address. You can prove that I am a. So we believe strongly. That's why, like, Polygon ID is also our slightly mid to longer term effort, where it is slowly building out these things, testing out with enterprises. There's so much demand for it, and eventually this will we believe that that might become the standard go to login stuff, like instead of it.
Do you think self-sovereign identity is realistic?
No, I mean, right now, I don't think so. Right, I don't, like, everybody is trying to find a solution to this. We, like, this Polygon, the way we are building Polygon ZKID is not like a self-sovereign. You still have, let's say, every geography will have few KYC providers, and then many of them will approve your same document that, okay, these details are fine, and then you can take that ID and then prove whatever you want to prove. Self-sovereign ID is a very good sounding concept, and might be somebody will be able to do it, but right now, like, if anything, Polygon is known for pragmatism, and we believe that, okay, right now we don't see a foreseeable path that how we'll reach there, so we are creating Polygon ID, which is basically this somewhere in the middle, right? You have privacy on your ID, but it's still verified by some KYC people. Once we have that, then there is already people are coming up with solutions that, okay, these are the people who are okay to do their ID. Now, are there individuals who might want to get recommended, or who don't want to do the real KYC, but these KYC people can recommend them, and then they might have their sovereign ID on chain. Probably that's possible. But starting from scratch for the ID like self-sovereign India, it's kind of like the self-sovereign individual is kind of like the algorithmic stablecoin,
Right.
Where you have like same thing but loving the same thing, and then
Disaster.
we already saw what happened over there
Several times.
several
The
times.
most recent, yes.
Yes.
My goodness.
So we don't know.
Okay. So maybe one or two questions left, and then I'd love to hear if there's anything else that you want to add that you think would be worth for me to know. In like a year or two from now, which I know is difficult, but where do you see things sitting? Like how much will the environment change? Like in terms of numbers of transactions per second? I mean, will we be at like 10,000 or 20,000? We're looking at 100,000. What other developments do you see coming down the road in a few years?
So, like as I said that, our North Star is mass adoption. And what I see is the sequence of events is that in 2020 when the DeFi broke out, we hardly had like all these big multi-billion dollar tokens, DeFi tokens, they had hardly 20,000 users. Then, when 2021, many of these like we came out, some of the other scaling blockchains also came out and all that. And now that average number of users is like somewhere around 400, 500K. If you combine all the blockchains, including
Yes.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, it will be like 2 million, 3 million, right? It's kind of ironic that, with 2 million users, the whole industry is worth like $1 trillion. It's
unbelievable.
Absolutely crazy, right? But still, 2-3 million users per day. I think like, in next 1 to 2 years, with many of these layer 2s coming in and all that, and there's talk of layer 3s which can be centralized, engines which can run and settle on layer 2 and which settles into layer 1. So I feel that, next step for us is that, from 2 million daily active users to reach to probably 10 million daily active users. And then the next leap should be like, because these things are always like, on a logarithmic scale, exponential.
Yeah.
So, maybe by 2025, 100 million users average, like I'm saying, about for all the Web3 applications, everything included, right? Transfers and everything. Hopefully we reach by 2025 there. And once we reach, I think that will be the place where we would have crossed the chasm. And I think the scalability will also kind of follow beyond a particular time, kind of follow Moore's law. Like, it will become cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah.
And I think, 2025, we should be able to reach somewhere between 50 to 100 million users, daily active users across all Web3 applications. And that's where we are moving towards. And I think zero knowledge is going to play a very big role on that, because essentially what you are doing with zero knowledge is you're computing somewhere on a layer 2 and putting every proof, like the succinct proof back to Ethereum that everything happened correctly, right? And I think that power that zero knowledge technology brings in, it's almost kind of magical from a distance. If you see, it looks magical, like how is this even possible? But it can provide that, and I think that will bring in a lot of computational scaling on blockchains, and this is where we are focused on completely.
Cool. Excellent. Anything else that you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, apart from that, like, just a message to the developers, like, who might be listening to it, is that, like, apart from these scaling solutions, we have the Polygon ID, which is for the identity solutions. And then we have Polygon data availability, which is basically, with rollups, actually layer 2, you have to put the proof and data back on Ethereum.
Yes.
And when you put data back on Ethereum, it becomes costly, right? So if you want to have a layer 2 which is less costly in cost, in terms of transaction cost, you might want to put data into a more scalable data availability layer. So for that we have Polygon data avail solution also, and there are multiple things that we are doing and all that. So the goal is to become, as I said, that kind of the AWS of blockchains, where it becomes a go-to platform for the developers. So I mean, if you are building anything, for any developer who's building anything, I think they should explore what they can do with Polygon, which solution suits them the best, and go from there. And that's what we are looking to move to.
Wonderful. Hey, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely.